Okay, Ryan, I have a question for you.
All right, hit me with it.
First off, hi, welcome to the Dungeon Crawl. I'm Braxton, and
I'm
that's Ryan.
Ryan.
My
We're
question,
talking today.
yeah, my question for you is,
hmm
and I think we've talked about this before, but do you pee in the shower?
Do I pee in the shower? I don't.
You
That's
don't have,
well,
but have you?
have I ever? I'm sure I have. I've lived
But
a
really, really think about
I've
it.
lived a long life.
I know I have,
You
but
have. You know for sure.
yes, I know for sure I have. I've been places, Ryan.
Kind of
Though
scary to think about.
that's a story for another day. But particularly today, I woke up and
hmm
wanted to take a shower because I laid in bed for a
Of
while.
course, as one
Texted
does.
you, said, "Hey, I'm gonna take a shower."
hmm
I got up
You're
and
stinky.
didn't. Well, no, I shower every day,
Oh,
so I'm not stinky. That I wake up and don't do anything else and hop in the shower. Now, see, that's the problem, is that I didn't do anything else. So when I'm in the shower and the water hits me, oh no, because you go to the fridge at night and you need to pee, but you pour a drink of water and the water flowing makes you need to pee. You
no,
have
I
that?
I just go pee.
Okay, you're inhuman. Well, what if you can't? What if you're like
Why
you're
can't I?
going to pee and then you pour water before you pee?
Okay,
You've
I
never
get. Oh, I
you've never
guess
done that.
I'm sure I have. I'm sure that would exacerbate my
This isn't
bladder.
the crux of my story though.
Sure. Okay.
I
Yeah,
was
we're getting
in the
sidetracked.
shower. So I've broken the seal before. I've peed in the shower before. But this is my new apartment and I don't want to do that.
Yeah, you don't want to start off on a bad foot.
So let me tell you, that shower took a lot of willpower.
Just holding it in,
Yes.
trying out some exercise techniques on your bladder.
So I had a terrible morning. That's how this was. Well, I
I'm
guess
sorry to hear that.
afternoon because I woke up at 12 or something.
Well, hopefully the rest of your day is better.
You ruined my story because you can't relate to it.
Well, I mean, I can kind of I can put myself in your shoes. I'm sure not being able to pee would be a problem. I've been at work and not been able to pee.
Well, but it's different when you've got running water on you.
That's definitely true. Yeah. Or
Currently,
you're
I'm
in
trying
the
to think
swimming
of.
around in the pool or something.
Wait, what? Oh, wait, who? I missed something. What did you just say?
Swimming in the pool. People pee in the
Yeah.
pool all the time.
Well, yeah, but sometimes pools have chemicals in there that if somebody pees, it makes it all like bright red.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Have you ever heard about that?
Yeah, ruins their night. Lets everyone know
Well, it
that
makes
they're
me
a pool peer.
it makes me wonder about our friend who works and teaches kids how
Uh-huh.
to swim. If she's swam in pee, I'm sure those kids have
I'm
peed
sure
in the
we've all
pool.
swam in pee at one point in our lives.
She's she's gonna love hearing this.
Well, imagine like you go to the beach, fish
Yeah.
piss, right?
Do they?
I I would assume so, right? They have
I
bodily
know fish
functions.
poop. I've had goldfish, and they have a little stringy poop.
So I'm sure we've swam in pee and poop before. If you've been to the beach, been to the ocean.
Well, you're from Houston. You've ever been to Lake Houston before?
No, I
I'm
haven't.
also from Houston. You've never been.
I don't believe so. I've been to Lake Travis.
Don't go to Lake Houston.
Don't go to Lake Houston.
I'm sorry, all of you who have fun recreational plans with the family to go out there, but it's just
Wouldn't
Lake
recommend.
Houston looks like a toilet and smells like a toilet and feels like a toilet.
So like the Gulf of Mexico.
Oof.
Nice.
But no, Houston. There's these particular spots people dock their boats and hang out, and like to the point where you can stand, but the ground feels like sludge,
Ew.
just because it's probably the type of soil that it is. But I do know people have pooped in there. I've seen a turd floating,
You've seen it.
and I know people pee in there because it's a massive body of water, and why wouldn't they?
Because we're not cavemen, that's why.
I don't know, man. You know who's also not a caveman?
Ooh.
People that use specific resources and tools during Dungeons and Dragons to make the play easier.
That's a stretch of a segue.
No. Yeah, I was talking to my friend Kenneth, and I
Uh-huh.
asked him, "Hey, do you use a DM's binder?" And he goes, "What's that?" Albeit he was joking, but for a second there, I was like, "Wait, do
Like,
you
wait,
do you
what?
keep notes or anything?" And he goes, "No." Is that's barbaric to me?
That
I'm
is
sorry.
barbaric. Yeah, you can't keep everything at the top of your head. That's terrible.
DM binders are crazy. And we'll talk about this again at some point. Wink.
Yeah, DM
But
binders,
today,
when we chatting a little bit more about that next week. But we
don't
thought a good
spoil them.
introduction to that would be other resources that you can use at the table, or I guess even before you get to the table as a DM, or even I guess maybe a little bit as a player, but kind of more on the DM side.
So I have talked about probably 99% of the resources that I use as a new DM. So unfortunately, we'll need to know about what you use because I think there's a lot more.
There's some overlap though. I've seen
there's
you some of them, and we've
yeah.
talked about them already. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, beginning here, I want to start with some of the more obscure ones because I don't think I've ever heard. And to be honest, I'm on a camera right now, but even when I was in person, you've got a nice little folder, so I can't see what you're using. You sometimes roll dice, not just regular dice,
special
not those
dice,
fancy D dice. Yeah, special dice. Tell us about those special dice.
Sure, I guess we'll start there. There's two types of dice that I use besides obviously the normal dice. One of them is called Rory's Story Cubes, which I mentioned briefly, maybe last time, I don't remember. But they're a set of 9 die that you can either roll 3, roll all 9, and just roll a couple, and they can help me kind of improv a story. So let's roll 3 here, and we'll see what I get. They have little pictures on them, and the pictures obviously are what help you improv what they are. It says it's also used for a party game, and I'm not entirely sure what type of game you would play with these. Problem solving, again, don't know. Creative inspiration, that's where I use it. I also JD, he has knocked the dice off.
He didn't like the result.
No, he didn't. You can't do that. You got to make the result work. And I also don't only use these in game. I'll use these if I can't think of a plot hook or something and I really need one for next session. I'll just roll a couple and come with some crazy. Usually I roll all 9 for that one, but in game I don't really have that time. So for this one, the 3 images that I got is a 1 big question mark. That's helpful. A clock and looks like a little worried face. It could be a happy face. I'm not entirely sure.
So a guy worried about what time it is because he doesn't know?
Could be, yeah. It could be something as simple as that. Make a quick little improv thing for your group to encounter a guy. Or you could do, maybe there's a mystery going on. The guy's worried and the clock is trying to kill him. Or like once the clock hits a certain time,
time travel,
it'll kill him. Yeah, there's a time traveler coming through. See, lots of random ideas you can get just with these 3 brief little quick images. I also have another.
You use those quite often, don't you? Though.
Yeah, I use them quite a bit. Especially, like I said, especially if the party is kind of going off the rails or they're in town and they've been chatting maybe in an inn for a while and just aren't really, I don't know, not really going or doing anything. It's kind of gives me something to toss in front of them. I remember one of the times I used them was, I don't remember what images I got, but I rolled them and it might have been the question mark one. And there was like a cane and I don't know, another weird image. But I ended up making an old lady, or it was 2 people, one old lady and a guy who were fighting about riddles. And they turned over to the group and asked them, if you could answer this riddle, I will give you an item. And then they ended up handing an item over to the party. And that might have been after you left.
I vaguely remember this.
Or you might have been there. I
feel like I remember. Because if there's a riddle involved, I'm definitely trying to solve it.
Yeah, you're a riddle fan, aren't you?
I'm the Riddler. Speaking of that, they just cast somebody in Robert Pattinson's The Batman as the Riddler. I don't know who it is.
Oh, I forgot that's coming out sometime soon. I wonder if it's going to be any good.
I feel like Batman's a bit saturated right now.
There hasn't been one in a bit, has there?
But there's a lot of Batman.
Yeah. Most of them haven't been too good.
I don't know. I just feel weird about all of these comic book universes having so many different people behind the mask.
Yeah, I agree.
I get that happens in the comic as well, but it's like...
Well, the problem when it happens in the comic, though, they're actually a different person.
Yeah, that freaks me out. Also, Is it a different universe?
No, not sometimes, but sometimes it's just a different. Like Bruce Wayne died, so Jack Brown picked up the mask. I don't know. but that doesn't happen too often.
It's weird to me. So yeah, I'm just gonna put this guy's used socks on and masquerade around as him.
Well, someone's got to pick up the mantle. Got to protect protect the world from whatever's threatening.
But why not be somebody else?
I don't know, man.
Anyway, dice cubes.
Yeah, there's a couple versions of Rory's story cubes. I have the normal kind of fantasy inspired ones, and then I also have, I think I have the actions one. I should have brought it over. It's either that or the voyages one. There's a lot of them. No, I think I have the exact fantasy one. Yeah, okay. So I have the normal, just the orange is an orange box, and I have one that's specifically fantasy related because I thought it would, kind of fit the fantasy world of D&D quite well. But I also have, I think they're called dungeon blocks or something like that. They recently
More dice.
Yes, more dice. It was a Kickstarter. Let me see if I can find them real quick. No, I don't have them. But they're these dice. It's similar, almost basically a similar idea as the story cubes. You roll a couple dice, and they'll have different dungeon dressing ideas on them. And it's easy if you just need to randomize or improv a room of a dungeon that you didn't really prepare, or you found out the dungeon's a little too small and the party's really invested in it. Okay, let me just make up a random room real quick. Or random creature encounter.
Wait, so what do you use for that? These are more dice?
These are more dice, yeah. Do you want me to go grab them real quick?
I mean, you can.
Yeah, I'll go grab them.
Okay, so while he's grabbing those, dungeons are the scariest part for me, and I honestly have no idea what to do when a player gets into a dungeon and it seems too small, so this is something I'm very, very interested in. Dungeons are tough. They're honestly the hardest part of Dungeons and Dragons to me, and I would love to have a discussion on how to make a dungeon. Honestly, that could be a good thing to chat about because I have a big problem with that. Have you returned?
You waffling?
Yeah, I was waffling.
Nice. Yeah.
I'm talking about dungeons and how we should make an episode on how to make them.
Heck yeah, that'd be awesome. I love making dungeons.
Heck yeah, because I need help, please.
There's lots of different ways you can take dungeons. Puzzles, encounters, everything. I don't know.
What's the monster population that's always tough for me?
Yeah, you can all. I mean, the typical dungeon, the stereotypical one, always has lots. Like big dungeons have lots of different things inside. They have the whole roaming monster tables for something that just lives in the dungeon that will walk around. But the type of dungeons I like to make are more thematical, based around one certain idea.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I don't want to throw like a kraken in a mountain dungeon.
That could be cool though.
It just doesn't work. Unless there's a giant pool that connects to the lake outside.
Whoa, see? But the things I got are by Incognito Solutions. And they are just dungeon dice. Yeah, something like that. And they look exactly like the Rory story cubes. And you just take a couple of them, and we'll just take these three. And I get a little witch's cauldron that looks like it has a pentagram on it. And then there's a shield. And a vase of flowers. How cute! So what you can do with that is,
what does this represent?
Yeah, they don't have to be plot. These are less plot oriented, and they could just be ideas and dressings for the dungeon. But this could be, there's a witch's cauldron in there, and maybe the flowers are not just flowers, but they're herbs that are used to be tossed into the thing. Can be used for other medicinal purposes if like a cleric finds them or something. And then the shield could be, there's a magical shield placed inside this dungeon somewhere. And the party's got to find it and uncover it. Yeah, just
so I do know
little ideas.
With random generators like that, at first I would be a little like, oh, you didn't prep this. It feels less special. Like the first time I found out you were rolling dice and having random things, it felt a bit cheap. And so how would you interact with players that had a thought like that?
Well, the interesting thing about that is I think most of the time that I've done these, I don't think you guys have noticed.
No, we haven't.
So that can maybe alleviate your worries that most people probably don't even notice. And if they do, I mean,
or you just go, yeah, Johnny, well, making dungeons is hard. Why don't you try? Get back here. Come on, just get back in my desk.
You come over. You do it. Jackass. Yeah, I mean, I think it just comes with the more you do it, the better you can get at improving and sliding as they were. Like we were talking about with the world building stuff. If you know your world pretty well, then it's much easier to just kind of drop things in and just grab different ideas that you have of this cult or this god or this deity or this person. And it's much easier to just kind of play something in that seems like you planned it, even if you didn't.
So these dice are a great example of what to do whenever you need resources to kind of facilitate the game, make it go a bit smoother, so that there's not as much dead space. Reference to popular game.
Oh.
What other situations would you find that you need a resource like this, and what would they be?
If you can't decide, like if you're before the game starts and you can't finish out your dungeon, or you can't think of any plot lines or ideas for NPCs, I'd say just roll a few of them, get some random ideas, and you don't have to flesh them out, or you can if you want to, and just maybe just write them down somewhere so you have it prepared for the actual game.
Make sure you're really good at remembering how your session goes, or take notes during it, or sneakily ask your players questions so that they tell you what
that
happens.
Actually goes into my next thing that I use. No, not my next. It was just a good segue to something else that I use.
I didn't plan it. Take it away.
I have just a gigantic notepad, one of those yellow papers you can just find at, I don't know, Walmart or something. I don't remember where I got.
The Yellow Pages? The
No,
phone
it's
book?
not yellow. They do have Yellow Pages, but they're not a Yellow Pages phone book. It's just a spiral. It's not really a spiral. It's one of those things that, you can, the paper goes over the top of it and you go to the next page and et cetera, et cetera. Regardless, it's just a big notepad. And I write everything that I improvise on here. So I remember down the line, or just things I need to remember. For example, and this will blow Braxton's little mind here, probably not. A while back, they were fighting these gnolls that were succumbed to some disease, and he got attacked by it, and I had to make a roll, and I never told him what the roll was for. Well, he failed it, and so I wrote down here, Carrion, which is his character's name, Frenzy, which is the disease. And then I wrote down how many days it will be till it affects him. And so when that day rolled around, I had him roll another die. And this one he did succeed on, so it didn't take a hold of him completely. So he succeeded, and that's done. But it was just a way for...
Hold on. Did this happen during that fight?
Right after you got hit, I had you roll a Constitution saving throw, and it was not too great. And I said, all right, he attacks you.
Wait, and then I, a few days later, made another roll to see if I got affected by the disease? When was that?
You woke up, and it was after that dungeon, you woke up, and I had you make a roll, and you did a good one. I said, okay, cool. All right, you guys all
Please
all
tell
wake
us,
up.
and for those in the front row who don't know what Frenzy does.
Frenzy basically would have turned you into almost like one of those creatures. You basically would have kept making saves every other day. I mean, you probably would have figured out what was happening at some point. You would have probably pieced things together, because you would have started kind of foaming at the mouth, almost like rabies. You would have started foaming at the mouth. You would have started having a craving for flesh, just normal stuff. And you also, each save that you failed would have increased your exhaustion level by 1.
Can't see my face right now, but I don't like that one.
Yeah, so stuff like that. If I didn't write it down, I definitely would have forgotten, because it carried over like a session and a half or something. I also have all the characters.
Ryan's trying to kill us. I'm 100% positive.
I'm not trying to kill anybody. I also have the characters' base perceptions on here, their passive perceptions, small little things by their names to make sure I remember things about them. Things that I've improvised, I just write down just their base thing. Like, it was a character, and I've talked about this before to you guys, so it's not super pulling the screen back. But I think it's good as a DM to do that every so often, just to let your players see that you don't have everything under control all the time. But there's a character, a little kid by the name of Bilfer. The party met very, very early on in their campaign. And I was trying to think of ways that I could utilize him, and I just kind of used him in the middle of the game, and I didn't really have time to really think about this guy. So I just improvised a name for his father, Randall, and his father had been missing. And I had no idea what his father did, but you guys asked. So okay, he's a tailor. Okay, where does he work at? Oh, good Lord, I don't know. The king's cow's tailor. And I wrote all this stuff down so I wouldn't forget it. You guys went to go investigate where his house was, and I described this stuff was being messed around, and it looked like he'd been dragged out. And so just to make sure I remember, because this was not stuff I'd written down on my sheets anywhere, so I then wrote down next to that, dragged by the goblins or whatever. So
we investigated that.
Yeah.
Hard.
So make sure you write down all your improvised stuff, or else it might come back to bite you in the ass.
We did eventually find Randall and reunite him with Bilfer.
Thank goodness.
It was a good moment.
And if the party does anything that I didn't expect them to do, like do something way off, or they with a quest or an NPC, they piss this guy off, I'll write down, Braxton will remember this. Not exactly like that.
So but I suffer from both bad handwriting and I'll remember this later. Mm-hmm. So when I'm taking notes, they are neither helpful to my future self or do not make sense.
Yeah, I mean, you took notes in school, right? Maybe not.
Not the best ones. This is where this
I just think you learn over time what notes work best for you. For example, like there was a priestess of one of the deities, Marina, that the party encountered that I didn't have a name for. I just said they're the priestesses here. And the party wanted to know her name, and so I just kind of came up with a name on the spot, which we'll get to when we get to talk about DM's binders and stuff. There's a lot of stuff for names in there. But Theodora was her name, and so I just write down Theodora Raven Queen. Boom. And that's it. And the rest of it will come back to me later. And eventually, I kind of use this as a way to write stuff down.
Then you go there, and you read that, and you think that Theodora is the Raven Queen.
Well, hopefully you've done enough world building to understand that she's not.
Nah. My notes are terrible.
I also have a lot of stuff crossed out in here. Things that I needed to remember that I don't need to remember anymore. So just boom. Like the party had a bunch of orc heads on their horses for a long time, and they were getting pretty rank. It's been a long time, so I just made sure to write down with a little star heads. Because
did that help you?
Because I remember there's heads on their horses. That's got to be important. Because, I mean, you guys are going to be riding past people. What are they going to notice? Oh, my God, the decomposing, nasty orc heads on the side of your horse.
To be fair, that was not me. That was our thief, our rogue.
Yeah, they wanted it to sell, but eventually you guys realized these are not even the orc heads that they were looking for.
Yeah, I mean, I completely forgot we even did that. It's been so long.
Yeah, time flies, doesn't it?
It's kind of scary.
Yes,
notepad.
Definitely have a notepad. Oh my God, you want to know something crazy?
I got a checklist, and you write notepad on your notepad, and you check it off.
Let's not do that. But I have stuff all the way back to the first campaign on here.
Holy shit.
Yeah. This won't mean anything to anybody but Braxton, but it says Nesric wants a tiefling. That's from the very first campaign. This is one of the first notes I took on here.
Does he exist still?
I'm sure, yeah, he's still out there.
Uh-oh.
What?
That's not good.
That's all right.
Nowhere my brother had made a promise to him and never fulfilled it.
It's all right.
No, it's
so
not.
Notepad and dice, done. Check. Boom.
Check.
Other stuff that I use at the table are, unfortunately, Braxton doesn't get these anymore, but I found it helps the players level because there's a lot of stuff to remember in D&D. There's a lot of stuff to remember. So I have these little things that I got from. I mainly wanted it for the deck of many things because at some point it'd be fun to introduce that into the game. Fun as in fun to watch the party fall apart and the campaign dissolve. But I wanted it just in case. And there was a Kickstarter for the deck of many by cardamajigs.com. And they came with a bunch of stuff for NPCs that I use occasionally and stuff for monsters. This also helped for people who don't like having a bunch of notes. It's just it has like their stat block all on one little card. Yeah, so it's quite handy. It has items and stuff as well. But I found the thing that helps the players out the most is the conditions cards that they have. So if there's a player who becomes stunned or becomes incapacitated or restrained or grappled or poisoned or petrified, stuff like that, I will hand them the card that has that condition modifier on it. So blinded, just so they remember what blinded will be doing to them, that they can't see and automatically fail any ability check, obviously requiring sight.
See, there's a problem with that though. I can simply just not take the card
Why can't you take the card? You're being forced to. Here.
because I don't want to be paralyzed. That shit
Well, too bad.
sucks.
You're already paralyzed. This is how you can know how to deal with it,
No.
though.
It really is a bad moment. You're sitting there, make a Constitution check. Fail. Okay, here's your card. Great, I wanted
fantastic.
this. It's an avocado.
No,
you don't know
I don't.
memes. God dang it.
There's one for unconscious. I don't think a player needs to know about being unconscious. But
it's still just funny to throw it
Yeah,
at
here you
them
go.
just to, put salt in the wound.
but the ones I find that I use the most are grappled, restrained, and poisoned.
Yeah, we use those a lot. My computer just went
no.
blank. Don't do that.
But
Something that I've been thinking a lot over the past couple of sessions, and this doesn't directly relate to this, but I'm starting to slowly think live action roleplay would be fun.
Doing some LARPing.
Yeah, but not half-assed LARPing, like going into a forest with your friends, but actually legitimately making it like a production.
Yeah. I mean,
Could be fun. It would be really hard for the DM.
oh yeah, doing like stuff like that. Yeah, that could be tough.
But I think, like, actually imagine that. I'm surprised that's not a popular thing. Maybe it is, but that would be
Like doing
really,
a
really cool.
D&D thing in person. Like
Yeah.
actually acting everything out.
And it's mostly just because I like being able to fully use my body to act and really say, hey, any motion I do right now is in character. That's one of the things I really enjoy. And it's hard to do on camera now, but Daniel kind of picks up on it, one of our players. I'll make a face or do a certain thing. That's something I do in game.
Yeah, like what are you? Are you all right over there? You okay?
It's hard to clarify because sometimes I'm just being Braxton, making like a shrug. But sometimes I'm in character.
I also try to incorporate that type of stuff whenever you guys cough or choke up, and obviously you don't want your character to be doing that. But I'll, as an NPC, I say, "Oh, yeah, are you all right? You okay?"
It's always fun.
Like, oh yeah, no, I'm fine. Just because I want I want them to think more that they're in character most of the time, and every so often we'll obviously have to have a chat out of the game, but I like trying to stick in our characters most as possible.
Yeah. Do you ever want to, just to see how it goes, enforce 100% only in character?
That'd be really hard.
No.
Well, what if there's like a just a logistics question?
Then we press pause.
Well, then that's not being in character all the time then.
Well, you can clarify it a bit more by making it everybody's out of character, everybody's in character, none of that. Stop.
Sure.
Oh, this D&D, get back in, where there's still conversation going on.
Yeah, I mean, it's something worth bringing up and asking everyone to see if people would be interested in that.
Yeah.
Because some people are definitely more into the acting sphere than others.
Who does that?
Well, Braxton actually had some good acting last time, which was always a fun experience.
Pat ourselves on the back.
Well, I appreciate the moments, like when we had the chat with a fiery man a while back too. There was some good conversations that transpire.
Yeah, just waiting for the moment that everybody else, slides into their character and finds that one moment. Because it's not just a thing you can do randomly because you're good or bad, but the moment has to set it up.
Be right.
There was two characters, and you had written this is like Game of Thrones shit. This whole story that had happened, and maybe use some resources to make this, but essentially we had saved a person who was trapped in a cultist's sort of cave, being beat up by gnolls, and these gnolls had destroyed his village. And I think he had escaped from slavers.
Yeah, much earlier on in his life.
Being captured and brought there as well. So eventually he said, hey, I want to go back to my village to try to find my brother and sister. Okay, we'll do that. But we first have to... Yeah. And we came across what we thought might have been slavers. So we had to deal with this first before we could go back to his village. The whole fight went through and through. And unfortunately, one of the caravans by one of our players, it was burned, and the slaves inside burned alive. Didn't think much of it.
Oh, yeah, just sad, whatever.
Like, player's perspective. But we get back and find out that his younger brother's, or older brother, I couldn't quite tell based off what he was saying.
It was his older brother.
his older brother was still alive and said that the sister had been taken away after he was knocked out by slavers.
Yeah, and the
Oof.
party pieced it together that it was probably she was probably in the caravan that had been demolished.
Yeah.
Um,
And this was over like 1 or 2 sessions, so it was a slow
mhm.
burn.
And
And then
the interesting thing though is with stuff like that, and we've talked about making consequences matter, is that each decision led to that moment. Because you guys could have gone through the city originally, which you guys decided to avoid, and found the brother and the sister beforehand, and maybe would have prevented some of this, depending on your butterfly effect, what you guys would have decided and whatever. Later, obviously, you could have decided to not burn the caravan.
It wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't your choice. There are lots of different things that led to that specific conclusion of that story. But
You're
I
completely
do
right.
like where it ended up though. Obviously, it's not ideal, but I think it was good for the group.
Well, I don't even remember what you specifically said, but there was this moment where the brother we had saved originally had gone outside because he had processed it and wanted to leave and blow off steam because he didn't feel he could tell his older brother at that moment. Because his older brother says, maybe we can go find her and save her. So it's this dramatic irony.
Yeah.
Everybody knows what happened except for the older brother. And then I go outside to talk with the younger brother who we'd saved, and he's been sticking around me a bit because he kind of lashed out as I was a tiefling, and he was worried about that at first, and he's apologized, and we've stuck together. There was this whole fight, and I kind of protected him a lot through it. So there was this connection that was set up. And Carrion has been searching for his brother for a long time. So sibling stuff is a soft point for him. But we were just talking, and I don't remember where the conversation went or what happened, but Ryan started tearing up, and hearing that, it made me start to tear up. And there's just this character moment.
Yeah.
And this gets into acting, but emotional availability, the willingness to let your emotions be affected by, something that's not even real.
They get to those moments.
So it was a lot of fun. It really scratched my theater.
Yeah, well, I just remember thinking that, because he couldn't, because the saddest thing was that he couldn't recognize who his sister was. He had.
Oh yeah, that was what it was.
Because you guys had checked at the bodies, and even one of them had been spoken with the dead by the cleric, and you guys obviously didn't recognize his sister. He was hanging out with you guys, trying to help with the body situation to bury them all later, and he was just completely distraught that he had no idea which one was her.
Honestly, it was just a truly sad moment. That was some good writing. Good job, Ryan.
Thanks. I like hitting some hard moments.
That made me sad. My brain chose to forget that line. Oh man.
But other resources that you can have at the table would maybe help you facilitate these moments.
A moment like that, yeah.
As stupid as it may sound, the player's handbook is very valuable to have on hand, because you'll sometimes have logistic questions that'll come up, and it's easy to just kind of flip it open, find it. Or as a DM, you can use it for trinkets. There's a trinket table in there that has fun little random things you can drop off, and I don't know, interesting things you can find. Curse of Strahd also has a really cool gothic trinket table if you want some more spooky stuff.
I had no idea what trinkets were before when I had mentioned them to you in Discord. So go through that a little bit.
Sure. So trinkets are just basic little items that the party can find while looting, or just on the road, or maybe inside someone's house. Just things that help make it look a little more lived. And you can even include it to decide, okay, this stuff has some cool story stuff to it, if the party wants to ask somebody about it, or if they carry it somewhere and ask somebody, just things that can help facilitate your old little brain noggin. Like I said, Curse of Strahd has some really cool ones as well. I actually have them right here. Trinkets.
Was one of them a doll?
Oh, there's a lot of Blinksy dolls in there, yeah. But the Gothic tables that has like a jar of pickled ghoul tongues, or an urn with the ashes of a dead relative, nails from the coffin of a murderer. Just random weird stuff like that.
Yeah, that's oddly specific.
It is very specific, yeah. Some other ones I think are cool are like a picture you drew as a child of your imaginary friend. It's obviously very specific to the player. And yeah, I guess you'd have to want to check with them to make sure that they did have an imaginary friend, or else it might be a little weird. But the normal trinket table has just stuff like a 1 pound egg with a bright red shell. What is that? A pipe that blows bubbles.
The 1 pound is very specific.
A vest with 100 tiny pockets. What could go in those tiny pockets? Who knows? Anything.
Yeah, that's not even useful at that point. Yeah, if you have 100 tiny pockets, I'd rather have just one big pocket so that I can fit any size.
But you could hide things in there, and people wouldn't know which pocket has the item.
But really think about the surface area of a vest, Ryan. If you have 100 tiny pockets, realistically, what could you actually put in there? 100 gold
ring,
coins?
A locket? A mummified finger?
100 tiny... Really, really think about how small these pockets would have to be.
They are pretty small, aren't they?
And realistically, like, could you reach to your back and put something in there? Like, there's some space on these vests that you couldn't reach. I guess there is a front and an inside.
Friends. Or you got Mage Hand.
That's Pickpocket Central.
That is Pickpocket Central, yeah.
But which pocket has something in it?
And maybe you'll feel them touching your vest, and then you can kill them.
It's a pickpocketer's protection vest.
I like it. See,
so
look at that thought process.
You have plus 1 to your what's it called?
Passive perception.
Passive perception against
pickpocketers.
Being pickpocketed. Question mark?
Sounds cool.
Yeah, there you go.
So now it's kind of like a magic item.
Yeah. That was fun.
See, look at all. See, now you just gotta be looking at some trinket tables, man.
Now you're thinking with, oh God, what was that commercial?
I don't know.
Oh my gosh, okay, we won't dwell on that for too long.
The other thing you should keep at your table is Xanathar's Guide to Everything, mainly.
Oof.
For the final, actually, there's a lot of things that you might want to hear as a DM. There's a whole section just on random encounters. Because the DM's guide has a little bit on it, but not much. This one has specific random encounters for the Arctic, for the coastal regions, desert, forest, grassland, hills, mountains, swamps, underdark, underwater, and urban.
My problem, though, is that I have 7 players, and a lot of this is geared towards 3 to 5.
Yeah, but for example, let's say we go to the Underdark encounter table, and we go from, what level do you want here? They got 1 to 4, 5,
16.
Sure. That'll slide in here to 11 and 16 encounter table. You roll a D100, and let's say you get a 76. This one's kind of interesting. A ruined village that once belonged to deep gnomes. A search has a 50% chance of uncovering 1d3 potions of healing, and 25% chance of finding a random common magic item. Which?
Where the hell is this?
It's in the Xanathars. What do you mean what?
I need to look at these books more.
Well, that's the most interesting one. The other ones are just 3d6 gargoyles. 1d10 mimics.
But like the fact that you get treasure or items, or I don't know, maybe I'm just overhyped about the healing potions.
Yeah, you as a player just hear healing potions, say, all right, I'm in. But with stuff like that where it says finding a random common magic item, that's when you got to have the Dungeon Master's Guide next to you too, to just roll on the magic item table. I usually like doing all the magic item stuff beforehand because I like giving the players a little piece of paper that explains the item, has a little bit of lore and fun information on it. But you don't have to do any of that type of stuff, and you just roll. Let's say that there's a mountain encounter that is a row of 1d10 plus 40 stakes upon which the bodies of kobolds, dwarves, or orcs are impaled. Oh my god.
Are kobolds weak?
Yeah, they're tiny little, they're like dragonborns, but much smaller and not as strong.
I only remember them from my commander deck in Magic the Gathering, which, by the way, I really hope they add that to Arena. I know they're probably thinking about it.
Like Commander?
Because there's so many legacy cards. Yeah, the
Commander's they're adding Brawl.
That's the only thing I would do if I played this.
Similar idea. They're adding a Brawl game mode, which is a similar idea, but it's not as encompassing as Commander is.
Will it be permanent, or I thought Brawls were?
I think they're gonna make it permanent. I'm not positive.
I will definitely get back into it then. But Kobolds, Prosh was this dragon guy that every time you cast him, based off of how much mana was used to cast him, he would spawn that many kobolds.
That's
cool. I believe. He could also, I think, destroy them. There was some effect on him that would allow you to tap for mana by destroying certain amounts of creatures, so it kind of feeds into itself. But without being commander, I think he costs 7 to
Ooh,
cast. But being a commander, the more you cast him, the more kobolds
there
you
you
bring
go.
in. Yeah, random thing. Maybe we should do a magic.
Well, I was thinking
I don't know enough about it.
kobolds might be the next maybe could be the next monster because they're cute little dudes that we could
Kobolds
dive
are
in.
really cool. I would love to because it could lead to some dragon stuff and
Mhm.
it could be a very long campaign involving.
They're also great for early campaigns because this default kobold that's in the monster manual has how many hit points? You want to guess? 5.
8.
Yeah.
Damn, he's dead in one
Yeah,
punch.
he's a
One
1/8
punch.
challenge CR rating. So these guys are not too powerful. There are some other variations, obviously, of kobolds, but they're much more tricksy kind of dudes. They have lots of numbers and traps and stuff.
Dissect that real quick. 1/8 challenge rating means if there's 8 of them, they are level 1 equal.
Kind of. CR. You don't want to think CR and level. They're not. They don't transfer the same.
So I mean, what is? Because I know somebody out there has a question about it, and I don't know much of it as well, other than when I pop it in, it gives a value for this creature. Yeah. So what is CR? Combat rating?
So CR and stuff. I don't really know exactly how it translates. It's much more into like kind of an XP category. So think if you're doing instead of milestone, you're doing XP based type of stuff. And so a challenge rating of 1/8 is only 25 XP. A quarter is 50, half is 100, and one challenge rating is 200 XP. But they don't transfer over by levels. So like a CR rating 5 would not be necessarily something that a level 5 party could take on, though I'm sure they probably could. If there's only one of these entities, they could probably kill them. But it's important to CR. It's much more just kind of a thing that you can kind of just utilize to base encounters around. But I wouldn't just use it and be done, because you can. There's some things that are probably that hit a little higher than their CR rating is, and vice versa. Things that are a little smaller, depending on if you, let's say you drop a huge CR rating guy against a level 8 party with like 7 people in it. It could be a cool encounter, but anything with action economy and D&D is very important to remember. If there's one creature and 7 dudes,
session, or the session
slaughter.
before. Oof. But yeah, the reason I asked you to kind of delve into that is because as they're navigating through these resources, they may come up with questions like that. And hopefully we can help out.
So the other things that's about all I use at the table. Physical stuff that is not in my DM binder. I do have some digital things that I use that I'm sure you've used that utilize as well.
Yeah, we've definitely
we've talked about Kobolds Fight Club before, which is where you would encounter all these CR things, these challenge ratings. But that also helps you kind of. The only thing I'd be worried about is if you just take a four person party and do level 8 and then hit random medium, you get things that obviously would not be together. You know, like this goblin's not gonna be hanging out with this gibbering mouther or something like that. So it can. I would hesitate using just the random feature on this thing, because then the encounters just might not make any sense.
Right.
But it is nice to
I've used it
started with.
I mean, you can dial in a lot of the features and then hit random so that it is controlled.
Yeah, you can do location. You can do. You could even type. Let's say you wanted just a bunch of goblins. You could just type into the search bar, goblin, and then random encounter, and then you'll get just a bunch of goblins. So that can help you. Lower it down. But there's another one that I've used. I haven't used in a long time because I only have the monster manual in it. Is called Goblinist, or tools.goblinist.com/5ENC. That's another random encounter generator. And this one actually tries to make them based around certain monsters. So I did a random encounter for a 4-party group, level 8, which is our current campaign. And it gave me a goblin boss, an ogre, a hobgoblin captain, a wolf, a hobgoblin, and another goblin. All kind of keeping it in the same idea of goblins, obviously. But generate another one, then we got a mind flayer and a quaggoth.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah. Yikes. No. So thinking about that, and the tool I've used before is, that one encounter, is it set up so that it's one per rest?
Well, there's
really?
an easy, medium, hard, and deadly. Those are just on medium setting. Deadly would be something you have just one in a day. But again, the problem with that is then the party can just go crazy on one thing. So you want to make sure that fight will force them to, if you really do just want to have one big encounter, you got to make it pretty intense because the party can go crazy and they know they can go crazy because maybe it's the end of the day or something. So you got to make sure the enemies are going to test them to their limits and not just be an easy little pushover fight.
Yeah, I mean, and again, we touched on this. Encounters aren't just combat. So use those little dice cubes to create a fun, RP.
And they don't all have to be. I like to use random encounters as the kind of comic relief of what's going on, and because a lot of times there's more serious stuff going on. The party's, just dealt with the death of this little girl that they didn't mean to kill, but they did. Maybe right after that, there's gonna be just a fun little happy thing, just kind of get their mind off of it and get them happy again, and then obviously when it's over, they can dive back into the sadness. But I think the comic relief stuff is very important. I mean, just watch a movie. A lot of comic relief sometimes. Sometimes too much, but it's not a film podcast.
Yeah. So really, I don't think between me and you, I think there are definitely other people out there that use way more random tools than we do.
Yeah, I like to use them before the game. I hesitate using them during the game, but if I do, I'm going to use Don John. donjon.bin.sh has some great stuff in it. There's fantasy stuff. Let's say you just want to do a random in. We've talked about this before in the past, but it's super easy. You just click on the random in generator and it'll generate a random in for you. Isn't that just heavenly? It has the menu, which is super important because some people don't want to make a whole menu of food. So here you go. You got boiled eggs and dried mushrooms and a tankard of mead, all for the low price of 9 copper pieces. Delicious. Even tells you who the innkeeper is, a description of what it looks like on the outside, where it is located in the city, has some plot hooks, some rumors that you can drop in, and who the patrons are, because sometimes it can be tough to, okay, you made an inn, but is it occupied with people? Probably. Oh, God, now I got to make all the people that are in there. Well, this does it all for you.
So, this is great, but you're in the middle of a session, perhaps, and now you're just reading, and everybody's like, hey, what's going on?
Well, the nice thing is it's so short. Like, the location here it says in a warehouse quarter northwest of a muddy pond stands a JSON Workshop of a male tanner named Throken. You can just quickly read that and then repurpose it and put it into your own words. Again, I think this kind of comes with more experience. The longer you play and the better you get at this type of stuff, is that you can just take what it's telling you and repurpose it and make it sound much cooler than it is. And, obviously not just reading off of a paper.
There's definitely going to be growing pains as you navigate, especially for me, since I operate solely off of my computer. Again, I mentioned this before, but a computer's great at multitasking, but I'm still one human with one mouse clicking on things one portion at a time. So there's a lot of moments that I'd be worried, or things that I can see me, typing in a feature and just honestly taking too much time. I do notice as a player when Ryan does this, the dead air doesn't really stand out to me.
I was going to say, just think how many times I do it, and if it bothers you, and I guess it's probably not too often.
Well, let's talk about how you felt about it at first. I think you've mentioned before to me that it did feel a lot longer.
It's especially if someone asks you a question that you don't know the answer to. It's like, hold on, let me, or they ask a name of a guy you weren't ready for. Yeah, I got a name. Yeah. Let me find it.
Yeah, as a DM, you can really you can feel as though you have to have the answers all the time, and you feel dumb for not answering something, especially if you're playing a game where you're not the most proficient person at D&D at the table. As the DM, that's somebody says, "Oh, what does Fireball do?" And you're like, let me look this up." And then one of your player goes, "Blah blah blah blah." Can't believe you didn't know that.
Well, my response for that would be, "You're the one with the damn spell. You should know it. Look up your." Well, yeah. I mean, I don't have to know everything about your character. Look up what your spell does ahead of time. Have it prepared. You don't have to know everything either. I'm not expecting you to know every little detail, but just at least know the basic idea. And just so if I ask, "Hey, what does your spell do?" You can let me know. So obviously I can look it up too.
Yeah, there's a lot of somebody would be casting a spell, and I know I could look it up faster than they could.
Mm-hmm.
So I tried to, but so there's just a lot of scrambling.
Yeah.
going
Oh
on as
God,
we
what do I?
go through our
I'm trying to find
resources.
everything.
Or I have a lot of new players in this group, and they used something that altered the terrain. It was a cantrip or a first level spell, I think, that made rough terrain, but it did a couple other things and they missed it. So I looked and realized. So now I kind of feel like I do need to look up all their spells always.
I usually will. Yeah, just so I know the basics of it too. But I'll let them try to explain to me first, and because I mean, it's obviously some of the spells I have memorized at this point, but some of you guys will pull out a spell I've never even heard of, like oh yeah, okay, yeah, sure, yeah, you can do that.
Mostly, I change my spells every level.
Yeah, that's okay, man. You get some cool stuff going on.
Yeah, Warlock's finally getting fun. I get my Mystic Arcanum, I think, next level.
If you make it to next level.
Hey, don't do that.
But the other things that
See, he's trying to kill us, guys. I'm not lying.
The other things that the Donjon gives you though is if you specifically go to the D&D 5e, or they even have a Pathfinder section. Let's say you're using some Pathfinder fun stuff. It has a section for random encounters too. I don't know if I necessarily would use these, but it does exist. The magic shop generator is quite handy because you can very easily just roll up a random weaponsmith or something in case you weren't entirely prepared for them to go on a shopping adventure. Does similar stuff as the tavern stuff. It will say who the shopkeep is and then give you some items that are inside of it. It also will give you random treasure generator, which I guess actually, oh my God, I'm an idiot. There's one last physical thing that I use that I completely forgot to mention. This is my lifesaver in so many different sections. I'm opening it right now. Some ASMR right there for you. So let's say the party, as you roll up one of these random encounters, and it says the combat encounter, and the party kills them and decides to loot them. Oh God, I've prepared for the encounter, but I haven't prepared for what is on these creatures. Well, you can use one of these random treasure generators that's on Donjon or something similar. It utilizes similar stuff that the DM guide does, but it will do it for you, so it saves you the headache. But I have these cards, these physical cards called the Game Master's Toolbox from Nord Games, and they're treasure decks. I have ones for CR all the way up from 1 to 10, I believe. I have to check the other ones. But you take a card, and you can roll a d12, or you can just pick and choose which ones you like. So let's say you get a 10 or 11 on this one, and the players will find a heavy crossbow and a quiver with 10 bolts in it. Or on this one, a long woolen bag which once held a musical instrument containing a pair of scribbled notes on glossy parchment. And the parchment it says a first level wizard spell scroll and a first level bard spell scroll. Obviously then you have to come up with what spells those are, but that's easy enough after you already have this stuff made for you. And it's handy dandy, my friend. Handy dandy.
Oh yeah. That's something I realized that I would make an encounter and then they go, I loot the bodies.
Oh no.
Oh, that's a thing you guys can do that I did not prep.
Yeah, sometimes I'll forget to prep, or you guys will lose something that I'm like, oh, I guess, yeah, that does make sense. Yeah, find out what's in there. Or especially now that she doesn't do it as often anymore, one of the rogues in the group would attempt to steal from people. And so I would utilize this at lower levels for, okay, you find it's a single large coin. It's worth 7 gold pieces and 4 silver pieces. Or you find some small little cool thing that this NPC has just walking by. Saves me a lot of stress and headache. I'll tell you that.
So would you consider physical things for your game map, or the table that you use to show the squares and the 5, all that stuff, is that resources?
I guess in a way, yeah. If you obviously don't need a map, you can go theater of the mind 100%. But I think maps can definitely help players and you as a DM just get a better grasp on what the landscape of the map is in the battle. So you can have I have one of these maps I just got off Amazon. It's very easy to find. It's one of the most popular ones. And I get some wet erase markers that I can draw a little map and stuff on there so the players can see what's going on.
Yeah, because there are distances that people can walk, and spells can only go a certain way, shape, or form. So sometimes balance can be thrown out of whack in theater of the mind.
Yeah, it can be tough to get the whole landscape pictured in your brain.
Yeah, like we were talking about these two little resources for the area of effect and range templates that can help you visualize how big a spell is, because if you're looking at, square maps, it can be hard to think of what is a sphere on
Yeah,
this
with
and what does it
15-foot
actually
radius.
affect.
Okay, now I gotta do some math.
If it curves barely into this cube, does it count?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
It's
Those are some also resources, miniatures.
yeah,
things like that.
miniatures,
Those are always
dwarven
fun.
forge stuff for the map. Which if you have some income that you want to start spending on stuff like that, I've always wanted to get some cool mapped stuff, but man, are they expensive.
If you are playing online, in my case, I could talk about this a lot. It costs money. There are bundles to get it for groups, but Tabletop Simulator, though it has one hell of a learning curve, that learning curve is infinite, and the things you can do with that are amazing. And they have literal resources, bunches of models, people online that, for a living or a hobby, make D&D miniatures that can be loaded into this software, this game that's just on Steam. And there are whole entire maps with grids planted on them. There's so many tools that I couldn't even dive into because, quite frankly, I'm not a master of it myself. I would love to use it. It just is asking a lot of everybody to get this installed on their computer. Can they run it? Of course, there are graphic settings that you can change, but that's a great place that has a lot of resources. Even in-game, it's got things that you would find in your Demon Binder on there. You honestly wouldn't even need to operate with two monitors. You could have everything on screen right there for you. And this isn't a sponsorship or anything.
Well, we're shouting out a lot of resources here.
Yeah, it's something that if you're interested in playing online, I would investigate it. It's definitely not as streamlined as Roll20. And again, I haven't used that much either, but I'm hoping to soon as my campaign gets more difficult. Theater of the Mind can't contain the complexity of the fights that I want to do. But those are some things that I really enjoy.
Yeah. I mean, you're not alone as a DM in this world. There's so many beautiful things that people have already had the issue you're encountering. Search it up. I'm sure there's something that'll help you out online.
Heck, Ryan, where do you get your royalty-free music from?
From so many different places.
Yeah, let's run through some of those. People that want to have music going on.
Well, the royalty-free stuff we get from Incomptech. Yeah, Incomptech.com. Kevin McLeod does some amazing work, and it's all free for you to use. Obviously, if you use it for something like this, you gotta give some credit somewhere, but it's fantastic work.
Yeah, so that's if you're streaming your D&D campaign or something like that. But how do you organize your music, disregarding royalty free or not? What is your favorite thing to use in session?
I use Spotify and Sirenscape together. Sirenscape
Spotify has some great playlists.
Sirenscape has all the sound effects and stuff. You can kind of mix and match your own sound effects and put them all together. So if you want to make a cave sound effect as the party is exploring a cave, easy enough. Then with Spotify, I will just make different playlists for different feelings and just play those on loop while the party is feeling those feelings.
Feel free to say no, Ryan, but do you want to make those playlists that you use public?
I think they already are.
How could people find them?
We can post them somewhere.
Okay.
There's some.
Let's do that.
Especially if we want to do a podcast on how impactful music is. I mean, I think music is. It really can change how someone's feeling. I like to manipulate my party by putting on certain music.
Yeah, I tried to do a moment like that, but it was so difficult to set up in the last session.
What was like the?
There was a violin that was found.
Yeah.
And I wanted to play it, but it was suspicious, so everybody was like, "No, Warlock, don't touch the suspicious item."
I like the violin song and just played one whenever you got it.
Yeah.
But like, for that sad moment that the party was experiencing, I just played my sad playlist over and over again. I'm sure if I'd been playing happy music or no music, it probably wouldn't have been nearly as impactful.
Or a decision that you made on purpose to create a dissonance between the music and the feeling.
That goes into, I have a specific playlist called Specific Moments.
Specific moments?
Well, because I'll be listening to music or a soundtrack, and I'll say this song is perfect for the exact specific moment that I have in mind. And so I'll just toss it in there. And then in my notes, I will put that song name. And so I'll just know to play that. Like for Braxton, his warlock has weird visions and stuff. And I like, let's think about in Star Wars, each character has their own theme. I like having certain songs that evoke that exact same feeling. So every time Braxton has, or his character has these visions, these feelings about his patron, I will play this certain song called Horns of Eden by Randall Correa Ford.
It's like Christmas every time.
Yeah, the second it starts rolling in, oh no, what's going on? What's happening?
So resources are anything that help facilitate a better game. Make it go smoothly. Make it go more fun, more scary.
Spooky.
Anything that just adds spoopy, because we're in that
Heck
month.
yeah.
It's getting there. 10 days till, or 11 days till Halloween.
Yeah, we should do a specific scary podcast, but the problem is we already have our next one set up, so maybe we'll do a late scary podcast.
Well, let me see. We do have our next one set up.
We can do a delayed one on the 4th of November.
Yeah, that's fine. That's technically, is it equidistant?
Close enough.
No, the Tuesday that week would have been better. But hey, we got other stuff going on.
The last couple of things are just more random roll tables. I'll just shout out really fast. We don't really need to go through them because there's a lot of stuff on them. Autorolltables.github.io, which basically, from what I recall, this just takes all the roll tables that have been put on like D100 or on Reddit, the D100 Reddit page, as well as a few other ones, and just this is like an aggregator. You can just click it and it'll roll it all for you. Then you also got a random plot hook generator. So if you need to roll one up on the fly, cassoon.com/DND/random-plot-hooks-generator. I'm sure you just probably type in random plot hook generator, you get a million, but this is great. And you just keep clicking another and it'll just generate 1,000 for you. Then in case if you don't want to roll up a table or a tavern menu, and so you're not using Don John for whatever ridiculous reason, here's another one that actually comes from Wizards of the Coast themselves. Wizards.com/DND/tavern/welcome. And it gives you a tavern name and then the whole menu and what they have for breakfast. So this one has owlbear chop, soft cheese, dragon turtle omelet, melon, and rice, all for 1 gold. That sounds delicious.
One of them.
It's actually what I did. I used this for, or at least partly, for when the party had they were at a noble ball, noble feast, and so I just used the noble version and just generated it a few times and found some stuff. So I thought these noble dudes would be eaten. So I make it a little bit different for them.
Time. And still, one of my favorites is simple, oh so simple, NPC generator.
Yeah.
We've talked about this in depth.
Oh
before.
yeah,
it's a good one. Gives you a plot hook, gives you a description, personality traits, the ability scores, their relationships, if any,
if they have any,
alignment tendencies. It's so.
It is so great.
Yeah, and their professions.
What could those professions be? I don't know. It could be anything.
Well, I mean, for example, you've got occupation. It's based off of their. Well, let me see. You can do a class or a profession. So profession, social class. So the profession will depend on what class they are. If you pick a lesser nobility, your choices are explorer, diplomat, knight, minister, page, or squire. But if you pick, they're a martial class, they might be a bodyguard, bounty hunter, forester, gladiator, jailer, or a soldier. Oh my god! Or you can just do random. You can export it. Gives this all to you in the HTML format. And you can paste this into your DM's binder on OneNote.
Whoa. Speaking of DM's binder,
which we'll talk about next week.
Yeah, I think that'll come next week. I got some cool things that we can talk about and look at.
DM's binder is your dictionary to your campaign.
Can be.
I don't know why. That's what I decided to do.
The last thing I'd recommend is just check out ancientquest.com. I don't use this too much during the game, but it has stuff to generate a world with history, and generate random quests. It also has stuff for random loot piles if you want to do that. Like this one even generates some, let's say the party finds a book. And it even says the book is in Elven Illusionary Arts, an encyclopedia by Hagatha O'Bibley. O'Bibley.
If any of you are particularly adept at dungeon mastering, feel free to shoot your favorite resources or something that you've maybe created at us. We'd love to talk about them or use them ourselves.
Yeah.
What are those handles, Ryan?
At Dungeon Crawl Pod for Twitter, at the Dungeon Crawl Pod at gmail.com. If you want to send us any stupid emails or yell at us for something that we messed up or forgot about, please do it. Give me your hate mail. Make sure you rate us 5 stars
Still
on
haven't
iTunes.
gotten my Warlock stuff. Do that. Always
and forever.
Or couple it with hate mail. I would love that. Send it 5 stars. These guys.
Yeah. Give us a 5-star rating and then tell us how much you hate us.
Love it.
I would love it.
Next week, do look forward to it because DM Binder is probably what I think one of the most important things that you should have is.
It's one of the first things I ended up. I once I made it. Oh, it changed the way I dungeon mastered.
Doctors hate him.
Doctors hate me?
You know, you're on the internet and you see those. Oh, this DM made a DM binder. Other DMs hate him. Wizard of the Coast hate him.
That's sad. I hope they don't hate me.
Nah, you know what I'm talking about.
I think
though,
so.
right?
Yeah. We'll also talk about along with that. We'll talk about DM screens as well. Obviously, it's more if you are playing in person, but there are some good DM screens. For example, I would even qualify the OneNote stuff that we use as a kind of a little DM screen.
Definitely. You can even have one in Tabletop Simulator.
And whatever you decide to put on that DM screen, people have made some. I use what some people have made, but you can also make your own and decide what you think is the most important stuff to have right there in front of you.
And remember, players are physically incapable of seeing behind this thing, so
anything you want.
Put any of your embarrassing notes there.
Say, I cannot wait to kill party member A.
Johnny's so dumb.
He's an idiot.
I hate him.
Just make sure if they ever come back there. Yeah, because I've done that sometimes where I rolled a natural 20 and said, hey, come check it. Make sure I'm telling the truth. And then they'll come just peek real fast.
Yes, I hide everything. Alrighty, guys. Thank you so much for joining us this week.
Thank you for
and next
joining
week,
me,
or
Braxton.
any of the weeks that... Oh. Well, thank you also.
We'll be back next week.
Disgusting.
With the old DM binder, DM stuff. And then maybe we'll do something spooky afterwards. We'll see.
I've been Braxton.
I've been Ryan.
That's Ryan. Oh, we said it twice. He's Ryan. And this has been the Dungeon Crawl.
See you next time, fools. Mortals.